Hello, I'm Tom Cohn, your independent candidate for Bridlington and the Wolds, and this is Stephen Ridsdale of Common Farm. Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Tom.
It's always nice to talk to a farmer.
Well, let's see, yes.
I've just driven from Bridlington to Market Wheaton, where I'm putting out posters and
Yeah.
flyers, and I noticed all these signs for the local Conservative guy, and I thought I'd just drop in and ask you why. Why are they still supporting the Conservative Party after?
Well, yeah,
14 years?
we have had a lot of challenges, and there's been a lot of changes in agriculture. The subsidy system has changed. We used to get a flat rate payment per acre, and that has now been scrapped, and we have a different system. Interestingly, Scotland also have a different system, so they are still getting some of these payments, but we are not. So we've got an unlevel playing field, not only just in Europe, but in the UK.
Okay.
Why do you see a lot of farmers have been Conservative voters traditionally? They've been Tory voters, and probably because and now it's like, how do we vote now? Because we're probably unhappy with where the government have done things for agriculture and changed things for agriculture. But a lot of farmers don't have pensions, and we buy a field. That's how we plan for the future. That's our pension, as it were. And so we have the farmland, and yes, it's worth, a fair bit of money. And what we can't have is changes to the inheritance tax rules and regulations. Otherwise, at the moment, farmland is something called APR, Agricultural Property Relief, so there's no inheritance tax on it. Now, if there was inheritance tax on it, it would be disastrous, because when it passes down from parents' generation to siblings' generation, you lose half your farm, or you lose 40% of it in inheritance tax. Right. Okay. And so the farmers would just get smaller and smaller and smaller, which of course is a nonsense. So there's no inheritance tax on it. But the problem is, or the worry is, that Labour they've got to get money from somewhere, and they've not said they're not going to increase income tax or national insurance, or there was another one of the common taxes. But so where are they going to get the money from, and are they going to put inheritance tax on farmland? And now,
do you really need them to rule that out?
We need them to rule that out. It's a double-edged sword, though, because, and this is where Labour might, or how the government might, whoever become the government, may look at this, because farmland, for me to buy farmland to make profitable, I really only want to be paying £2,000 or £3,000 an acre, because we only make maybe £200 or £300 an acre profit, maybe even less than that, maybe only £100 an acre profit. But farmland's £10,000 an acre.
Yes, it should.
And the reason it's £10,000 an acre is because it can shelter wealth. You get people like Dyson, the vacuum cleaner guy.
Yeah, he's bought loads.
And he's bought a lot of Lincolnshire. Yeah. So wealthy people probably buy farmland to shelter money from inheritance tax. And that's why farmland is £10,000 an acre. It shouldn't be, because it's a 50-year payback at £10,000 an acre.
So it's greed again.
So
people making very big money want to.
Yeah. So do we want inheritance tax on farmland or not? We don't. Yeah. But we also have this problem as to why farmland's so expensive and we can't afford to expand and buy anymore, or the average farmer can't. The people who buy farms tend to be people who, say, farmers who've sold for housing developments, for example, and they've got a couple of £1 million, and so they either get taxed on it or they buy farmland, and then have inheritance free on it. So that's probably that's probably the overriding reason why you still see the blue banners outside farm gateways at this moment in time, at the end of June, running up to the election, because we're frightened to death that inheritance tax comes onto us, particularly when we've worked really hard, we've worked all hours, and we've bought that field next door for an extortionate amount of money, but that's our pension.
Yes, I understand.
And there's no inheritance tax, or inheritance tax rules on pensions are relatively good, but there might not be on the way we've planned for the future.
Yeah. So
does that make sense?
Was it work as if you're going to live forever and live as if you're going to die tomorrow?
Something like that. Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm an independent, and I'm here learning about these things. So what would be the right way out of this? What would be a correct way? What would be a different way? What would be the farmer's way of looking at this?
First of all,
how can you be free? Because you sound like you're prisoners to a voting system that you perhaps don't want to be.
One thing that we have a real problem with is the power of the multiple retailers. The supermarkets, there was once a time, and the supermarkets didn't exist if you went back 50 years ago, and we all sold locally, and it was all local merchants and local stores and such like, and then there was a balance in the supply chain, of the balance of power, and that balance of power has now shifted all the way, it's Tesco's and Sainsbury's have the power, and they have massive buying power. The big processors have massive buying power, and we have a lot of food regulation in this country, and it's only right, because we want safe food, and we want food to be produced in an environmentally sensitive way. We want it to be in a welfare friendly way, because if we're dealing with animals, they come first, and so that makes our production cost reasonably expensive
in comparison to places where they don't. Where
they don't, yes, exactly. So we don't mind that, but what the processors will do is they will buy in from abroad and import the cheap stuff, and it keeps a lid on our prices, but we've got the high costs, and that is our business problem that we need to solve.
You need a champion.
We need now. The old subsidy system was something called BPS, Basic Payments Scheme, and it paid towards £100 an acre, and you might question what it did. In my mind, what it did was it helped us with like a bridge of support between our high standards and production costs, which is only right, and the cheaper imports, and it just helped us to bridge that gap. But that's now gone. That's been taken away, and the subsidy system has changed.
So people wouldn't have really understood subsidy. They just know you've got money for free. That's.
Well, yes, and it's really. Some people might say there's a farmer and he's got X million pounds worth of property, and we're giving him a subsidy. But there's farmers, and all farmers aren't the same. There's an awful lot of tenant farmers.
Yes.
And they don't own the farm. It belongs to Lord such and such, or whoever it belongs to, or the pension funds own a lot of property, etc., etc. And so those farmers are not sat on £5 million at all, and they've got a rent to pay, and so they're then maybe not wealthy people at all, and they are high production costs, high standards, competing with the imports that come in. And
can I ask you a quick question? I don't mean to stop your flow, but do the large processors, is there any requirement for them to publish their import balances?
Not that I know of.
Can people research and find out exactly what this balance is? Because when people say buy British, they don't know that they're not buying British until it's too late.
Well, yes, this is it may have just changed recently. I'm not entirely certain, but certainly until recently, you could have pig meat produced in Denmark and sent across here, and if it was packaged in England, then it could have a union. It could have a union flag on it, which is really conning the consumer.
Yes.
And so we certainly need the union flag only to be on from produce which has been grown and reared here.
And nurtured here,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because I think, people do say, if you asked 10 shoppers, 8 of them or 9 of them would say, or maybe even 10 of them would say, yes, we want to buy British, because we know it's high production standards, etc. But then, of course, the food shop's a big part of your weekly outgoings, and people buy on price. So we have this real difficulty that people buy on price. They'd love to buy the high provenance, high welfare goods that we produce and support us, and we're very grateful of that. But price comes into it, and you can understand it because there's a cost of living crisis, and So
okay, so I'm beginning to see the outline of what a champion would have to do. What else how else can people understand what's going on in farming? What else? I mean, there's been an awful lot of people leaving the farming industry. There's been farms sold.
Yeah, well, the younger people, they just can't make an equivalent wage as you could going to be a computer software engineer or many other industries, or even driving a forklift in a warehouse.
Is that creating a problem with succession?
Well, it's creating a problem with succession. The average age of a farmer is quite old in this country. Well into the 50s, probably, maybe even into the 60s. Yeah.
So there's a problem,
and it's a problem getting staff as well, because we're in this position of the high costs with the imports coming in. Farmers can't afford to pay £20 an hour for somebody, so they struggle for staff.
Yeah.
They don't really want to pay minimum wage, which is not a great place for an industry to be at. We'd love to be paying, competitive wages and attracting people to help us, but then that leaves us with no profit left over if we've paid too much in wages. So it's difficult. It is really difficult.
Proper challenge.
It is, yeah. I mean, we have a great job, and we're in the outdoors.
When it's good, it's great.
It's good. When it rains, it does rain a lot. It's rained for 12 months since last July, but we've to accept the weather. Taking the serious side of the weather thing, we can't blame anybody for the weather. But on the other hand, climate change is important to us. So because we don't want, climate's difficult enough as it is, so we don't want it to be even more problematic. We also, probably because agriculture is so economically difficult to make it all add up, having the planning process, for example, to make it easy for us to diversify into holiday cottages, for example, or business units, or that would be a big help to us. Or even, and then now there's a contentious one, renewable energy, whether it's wind turbines or solar panels, and this constituency, a lot of it is the Yorkshire Wolds, which may become an area of outstanding natural beauty, which you can totally understand, and it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you want to? But on the other hand, will that stop farmers? Will it make it more difficult for them to get the solar panel, solar farm, for example? And no doubt it will. Yeah. As opposed to other areas of the East Riding, in the Vale of York, maybe in the Bridlington to Goole area, which might be easier to get through the planning process. So the proposal for an area of outstanding natural beauty, it's strange because it's probably the farms and the landscape which have caused, if caused is the wrong word, but created the opportunity to designate it, but then this might then stifle the exact people who've created the beauty.
I can see some new technologies coming that will ease some of those things, but working with the planning people and having them really understand farmers is massively important. As you know, I've been through this myself, and I've worked with farmers when they've diversified and looking at ways of helping them in the past. Yeah, it is very challenging. That hasn't really changed over the years. That's still quite a tough job. Yeah. So and loosening those up or being more realistic about them would be very helpful.
They have just re-looked at and given slightly better permitted development rights for farmers for conversion of traditional farm buildings. So that's welcome.
Yes,
absolutely. So it is permitted development to turn traditional barns, for example, into houses, which you then might let out, for example, whether it be for holidays or for longer term lets, for example. So that would be a nice, secure, but then the planning department can turn it down if for reasons of flooding, which is, reasonable.
The whole flooding thing, I know, to map out a flood zone.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, well, maybe not on the Wolds, but certainly down in the Vale of York, it's an important issue, obviously, and we can't build houses where it's going to flood. Flooding is a problem for us as well. Yeah. When you come off the Wolds and you get into the lowlands, and we get the runoff very quickly, or from the towns and such like. And a lot, as you come off the Wolds, the height above sea level drops down to 10, 12, 13 metres, something along that sort of ballpark, and even lower as you get down towards sort of beyond Home and Spalding, more towards Brough and all that area, Gilberdike, etc. And and less, and down to sea level. Yeah.
So I want to, if I may, I want to just pick up on couple of my favourite topics. How do you get on for dentistry and medical NHS support? How easy is it for you to access?
Well, I don't know whether it makes no difference if you're a farmer or not, but
I just wondered, that's all. Because you're out in
we've struggled. One closed down who we were with as a family, NHS dentist, and it was started by an individual dentist, and then they sold out to a bigger company, and then they haven't been able to fill the positions of the dentists. Maybe that's because there's not enough money coming down from the NHS payments. I don't know.
There's a whole
and we've ended up going to private practice.
Yes.
So we're paying our national insurance and tax and not getting the service. No doubt about it.
Same as the rest of us. I just wondered if it was as easy or more challenging, because you are, quite a rural area.
We are, yeah. We've got cars, we can get to Auckland,
you've got cars,
but I don't think it's any more challenging being in a rural area. There's certainly being in a rural area. Sometimes you do feel as though, often when allocation of funding, it's bang for your buck, and if you can have a nice new road surface connecting to the town, that gets done. And we do seem as though we get, there's like one farm down a little track, and so they don't come and repair the road, so you do feel as though that happens.
That seems very reasonable. Well, we often get stuck behind you when you're doing your runs, so that's probably a little bit.
Yes, well, I suppose harvesters, it's time of year where harvest will come up now, and we've got large equipment. We've got to get them down the road. We've got to get them to the fields, and we do appreciate it if the public are mindful of that. Yeah, we'll hopefully pull over for them to let them past, but hopefully they'll give us a little bit of space as well. And generally, everyone's good generally.
Keep calm and buy British.
Yes.
Thanks very much for your time today.
Right, that's okay, Tom.
Thank you.